Welcome to the Royal Family Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler. I'm a local musician, writer, former social media manager, lover of coffee, tea, chess, stuff like that. And this is my co-host, Austin.
What's up, guys? Also a KC guy, born and bred. Really excited just to kind of talk about one of my biggest passions being sports, especially KC sports. Excited to discuss a lot with you, Tyler. Excited to learn and kind of see where we go from here.
Yeah. So what's your knowledge of baseball like?
My knowledge of baseball, I would say my family was never really like a big like baseball family or anything like that. So I'm mainly self-taught.
But you're more of a soccer guy, yeah?
I am more of a soccer guy. But I will say in a lot of situations, I'll probably have to defer to you when it comes to baseball. I have been keeping up with the Royals. I would say especially over the last probably 13, 14 years. Yeah, I would say I have a pretty good knowledge of things, but I definitely defer to you.
I wonder what happened around 13 years ago that would have...
Well, we didn't win the chip until 15. Remember, we were runner-ups in 14. But
we started being good at the end of 13.
Well, I said 13, 14 years, so we're talking like 2011, 2012.
You got on right before.
So, yeah, I'm always ahead of the curve. So, I think this is just one of those situations,
Going forward, we're going to be trying to record every 2 weeks minimum. And this is going to be one of the only ones we do in person for a while. But we thought it'd be important to do the first one in person. We will also be launching a Discord for anybody who's a listener and wants to be a part of the community. You'll be able to find our podcast on all platforms: YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, blah, 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 blah. You can also follow us on our socials. We're on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, even Threads. Our on TikTok, Instagram is the Royal Family Pod KC. Should come up if you look up the Royal Family Podcast. All right, so let's get into the last week of Royals baseball. We started off taking the series from the Cardinals in St. Louis. Our bats came alive. We were pretty electric, not gonna lie. We should have swept them. There was some unfortunate coaching decisions, in my opinion, that happened, but we'll get into that later.
He has a lot to say.
Yeah, me and Q, we've had some trouble.
You've been on better terms.
Yeah, better.
Not that you've ever been on great terms.
Yeah, I don't know that we've been on good terms, but better for sure. But yeah, we'll get into that later. We scored 22 runs in that series. That's more than the last 9 games combined before that. We had a home run in every game, and I wrote that down after the St. Louis series, but we've actually had a home run in every game of both the past 2 series, which is pretty interesting as long as we don't just start trying to hit home runs too much, because that can put us into another slump. We had Jack get his debut, Jack Caglione, which somebody tell me how the Italian language works.
So let me break it down as the Italian I'm kidding, I'm joking. Yeah. I did hear someone say Caglianone, which I think that's the proper, it accounts for the 2 N's.
I don't think so.
Caglianone.
Who did you hear say that?
Somebody on TV, I don't know.
I think probably not, because it'd be crazy if all of the Royals broadcasters just get it wrong every single time. And there's no way they didn't ask him.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time.
And also Joel, the interview guy, when he interviewed him for something we'll talk about later, his 4-hit game, he said, "I'm here with Jack Caglione," and Jack didn't say anything. Not that he would correct him right now, but
true.
I think they have it right.
I don't know. I feel like there's another N, you brought this up to me.
There is another N.
Yeah, you brought it up to me.
It's just silent, like spaghetti. Wait, Like lasagna, not spaghetti. Like the G in lasagna, okay?
Lasagna. So it'd be a yeah.
Gangsters move in silence like lasagna. Real quick, I wanted to talk about Reagan's because there's 3 things going on in this Cardinals series, and it's Reagan's comes back last second. Between the first and second game of the doubleheader, he was announced that he was reinstated to the lineup, which was a big surprise. Didn't know he was ready. And when he pitched, he didn't look ready. But he gave up a ton of home runs. I think he gave up 5 runs total and came out in the 3rd inning. They did say after the game it wasn't his injury. They just think he's rusty. I kind of wonder if he's got something mental happening. It seems like the last couple times he's pitched, something is just getting to him. And I wonder if it's not more something he should focus on his mental other than an injury. But that's kind of worrisome because the other things happening is Noah Cameron continues his dominance. He's the second player ever in MLB history to have 5 straight have their first 5 starts of 6 innings or more having allowed 1 run or less. And he's on fire. And then Lorenzen, at least in the Cardinals series, continued to be terrible. So I was thinking Reagan's can come back. We can put Cameron in the starting lineup, and then we can move Lorenzen either to the bullpen or send him down to AAA to figure out what is going wrong with his pitching. And Reagan's, in his game, almost looked more like a liability than even Lorenzen. So we kind of have a problem there, and I don't really know what we're going to do to fix that. But going into the White Sox series and skipping ahead just a little bit to the last game, Lorenzen did only give up 2 runs on, I think, 1 hit, which is pretty crazy. He didn't look dominant by any means. I think the White Sox just hit a lot of balls at people. But he did look better. So that throws a wrench into things too. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah. And I think it is only 1 game where he looked, I would say, a lot better compared to against the Cards. But I do think the place for Lorenzen in this team is in the bullpen.
Yes, that is his only recent good start. But he started off the season like his first 3 or 4, or maybe there was 1 bad one in the midst of there. But the majority of his first like 4 or 5 starts, he was looking really good. So that's another thing where he could be back. He could be a better option than Reagan's right now. There's nothing worse than a struggling left-handed pitcher because the majority of the league is right-handed batters. So yeah, I really don't know what we're gonna do, but I hope they figure it out. But yeah, going into the White Sox series, one of the more frustrating series, probably the most frustrating series I've seen this year. We should have swept the floor with them. I will give them props. They just, what do you call it? Split. They just split the series with Detroit. So that's crazy, huge for them. So yeah, they're playing a lot better right now. And yeah, they've called up a lot of people, especially pitchers that are pretty solid. We still should have won at least the last 2 games. And so it's really frustrating that we couldn't get a win there. They took 2 out of 3 from us. We couldn't hit with runners in scoring position. Even the last game where we scored 7 runs, that was on 16 hits. So we're really struggling in that category. And usually that when you have a team that's hitting a lot better, 11th in the league at this point, I think, that's on the coach who's making lineup decisions. That is not lining people up in a way where if this guy gets on base, this guy can hit him home. And we'll get into that later as well. But Yeah, a lot of questionable decisions by Q this series. But some good things. We did win that final game. The bats looked amazing. And Jack went 4 for 4, which is almost unheard of for a rookie to do this early in the season. And one of them was hit to the wall. So he's getting real close to his first major league home run.
And that's what I've noticed. Like, when he gets his hits, like he's hitting the ball like with authority. I do think it's only a matter of time before he really truly like starts to pop off and hitting home runs at a clip at or near the rate of a Vinny Pasquantino.
Yes, and you know what we also really need?
Better coach?
No, we need Urseg back in the lineup.
That
I
is true.
haven't heard much of an update. I know he was having back spasms like a week ago, but it sounded like something he was going to be back really soon, and he's not yet. I could see, since Q loves to look into the future and never focus on the games at hand, I could see him wanting to save him for the New York series, which I think is fine. But let's hope he's back for the New York series because we need him.
Yeah, and hopefully the bats will not disappear when we come back to Kauffman. Hopefully they'll still be around and we can get a lead to be able to be in that position to bring in Ursig in.
Yeah, and we'll discuss it later, but we should be able to get the bats going. They are not very good at pitching. They are mainly hitting, and they're in first place because of their hitting. That's how good they are, but they're not that great of a pitching team, so hopefully we can get the bats working. Player of the week is something that we're going to award a player with. I'm sure they'll be thrilled each week. This week, the player that is going to get the player of the week is also going to be the answer of the stat of the week question that I'm going to quiz Austin with. So I won't say their name just yet. So let's get into the stats of the week. You ready?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So, Austin, which player currently has an active 24-plus game on-base streak? During the said streak, they're hitting .398 with a .444 on-base percentage.
I know this because I know we talked about his hitting streak, as well as I know this is a guy you really rally for, and a guy who you think should be the top of the batting order, and that would be one Michael Garcia. Final answer.
I was hoping that you would think that. You are incorrect.
Dang.
That would be one Vinny Pasquantino.
Wow.
24-game on-base streak, which means like a walk counts and error counts. But he also, I believe he has a 9-game hitting streak currently. Michael's 15-game hitting streak ended last week, like 2 Sundays ago, I think. But yeah, Vinny Pasquantino, 24 game on base streak, and our player of the week, because within a matter of maybe 3 to 4 weeks, he's brought his average from like 218 to 280, which is insane. He's our hottest batter right now. Not our best batter overall in terms of average, but our hottest. And that could not have come at a better time, because now we have 2 power lefties in that power slot. So I'm really excited about that. We do have one more stat, and this is going to be about the KC Current. Austin, which player is the first NWSL player to take 400 regular season corner kicks in league history? And they are on the Current.
The top how many?
Which,
or just which one player?
Yeah.
Okay. I know who takes most of our corners. She's had a long career, formerly of the Chicago Red Stars. I'm going to guess Vanessa DiBernardo.
That is correct. You really know your KC Current.
Listen, man, I rival the best of them. So shifting gears to my favorite segment, we're going to talk about current thoughts. This is kind of where we talk about the state of the KC Current and kind of things that are going on with them.
And who is the KC Current again?
That is Kansas City's women's professional soccer team. They play in the lovely CPKC Stadium right off of the Missouri River. First soccer-specific stadium built for professional women's soccer. You've probably been living under a rock if you live in KC and haven't heard of them.
And let me just ask, because for people wanting to know at home,
Absolutely.
is this the same color as the KC Currents color?
That is pretty dang close. It's like a tealish color. Yeah, I'd say that's...
I think maybe theirs is a little darker, but...
Yeah, probably a little darker.
Well, thanks for answering that for me.
For sure. But yeah, this is the segment we're just going to talk about the current and kind of how things are going. Maybe educate Tyler a little bit along the way, the same way he does with me in baseball. So just to kind of recap with the current, currently first place in the NWSL, 27 points through 11 games. At the time of recording this, we're a day after their win over... who did they play? No, we're 2 days because they played on Saturday. Yeah, 2 days away from their 2-1 win over Gotham.
Gotham, because Gotham in the DC universe is portrayed after New York. And so this team that is in New Jersey decided to take on a fictional New York name. And that makes perfect sense to me.
Technically... Didn't Batman get the name for the fact that New York was nicknamed Gotham? Or did it not work that way? Did it not work that way? Okay, so they got it from Christopher Nolan.
No.
Oh, well, I guess he wasn't the first director, so.
No, the Batman comics came out in like the 40s or 50s.
Yeah, let's cut this part out.
Before Christopher Nolan was born. So anyways,
that's the only director I could think of.
Anyways, go on about...
But anyways, back to the current. Tyler, you were very invested in the game on Saturday. We made sure of it. What did you learn about the current or just soccer in general?
Not a single thing, but I have some questions for you. I will say I'm not completely in the dark about soccer. I started getting into... I hated it growing up. I hated soccer because it was cool to hate soccer as a kid in America. But I started getting into it when Sporting KC, our men's team in the MLS, was really good. I think they won the championship in 2013.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I have a base knowledge of at least American soccer, and I watched the World Cup and whatnot. But I do have some questions.
Yeah. Shoot.
A few years ago, we completely rebranded our team. We built the new stadium, as you said, the first women's-specific sports stadium in America.
For soccer.
Or the world.
In the world, yeah.
I think it's for sports in general. I'm almost certain that was... I'll look it up after, and I'll edit it out if I'm wrong. So yeah, we rebranded a few years ago to the current and changed up essentially everything. And I was just going to ask, how did we improve so much from like right before we rebranded to now?
I think it's like a combination of things. I guess if we kind of backtrack, the first iteration of, at least in the 2010s, of Kansas City professional sports team in soccer was FC Kansas City. So we had that team. We won back-to-back championships with our current manager, Vlatko Andonovski.
Football Club Kansas City.
Yes, Football Club Kansas City. That was our original name. We got new owners. They moved the team to Utah, and rather rudely, they named them the Utah Royals, which it's like, we have the KC Royals. It's like, that kind of felt like a bit of a shot. I believe when they were in Utah for a few years, they got new owners. We were able to get that franchise back.
What did you feel about them when they were in Utah?
I didn't enjoy it. This was probably, 4 or 5 years after Sporting had won the championship against Real Salt Lake, which is the men's team based in Salt Lake City.
What's your problem with the Mormon Church?
And at that time, there was kind of a lot of animosity between KC soccer fans and Salt Lake City soccer fans. So the fact that not only did they take our team, but they named it, obviously this wasn't maybe their intention, but named after another Kansas City sports team, it just felt like a twisting of the knife. So we didn't have a women's professional soccer team for a few years there.
Do you know there's not even salt in the lake?
I was not aware.
Yeah. And so it's just a lie anyways. And Kansas City is probably not the first, but one of the first two originators of jazz from the rich black culture that we've had here. Mm-hmm. And they have the Utah Jazz. So what's up with that?
I feel like we're getting into a lot of different topics here.
I'm just saying, I'm agreeing with you. We hate Utah or Salt Lake.
Not that I hate them. A dislike for their men's
culture
team, and just kind of like the parallel between that and the fact that they got our team, and now. But anyways, long story short, we were able to get the team back. We didn't have a team name for the first couple years after they came back to KC, so we were like the KC NWSL team, KC Woso, we were called. And honestly, like we were like bottom of the table, like those 2 years. But to answer your question, how did we make the turnaround so quickly? I feel like the excitement of the stadium, the training facilities that we had built, we ended up bringing Vlatko back. I feel like that excitement, as well as the coaching change that we had, really helped to turn things around in a big way. Vlatko is an amazing club coach. He coached the women's national team for the United States. Didn't end so well, but club level, one of the best coaches in the league.
Do you feel like Patrick and Brittany Mahomes having a co-ownership of the franchise, or part of the ownership at least, do you feel like that had an effect in any way on the players on the team?
Absolutely. With the success of the Chiefs, the name recognition of the Mahomes, I feel like that injected an extra level of, at least from a fan or even a national perspective, more interest in what the team was doing, just more eyes being on the sport. But I think, personnel-wise, I think Vlatko bringing in players like, for example, Temwa Chawinga, she was playing in China. I had never heard of her. A lot of people in the U.S. had never heard of her. But you look at her stats. She scored 83 goals in 84 games in China. Like, obviously, I don't know the level of competition over there, but that's still an impressive mark. And she's really continuing that here. Last season, winning the MVP and the Golden Boot, and then so far this season, scoring as many goals as she had.
What do you have to say about Harrison Butker's recent comments that the Current should shut down as a team?
I was actually not aware of that comment.
Can you explain the VAR and yellow card moments in the second half, to which it seemed like there was a lot? It seemed like specifically Sonnet, if that's how you pronounce her name, on the other team, was arguing with the ref like the entire second half. I wasn't in a place where I could watch the game with sound, so I was wondering if you could explain a few of those moments.
Yeah, there were some really interesting moments in the game. Emily Sonnet being another one of those U.S. women's international players, which again, Gotham has the talent. Her goal that was disallowed, that was because she had a foul on Claire Hutton. She pushed her before she headed the ball in. I don't think there's any controversy with that call. The one that Esther Gonzalez scored, that was due to her being in an offside position. I don't really think there's much controversy with that one. The one where I think there probably is some controversy was the potential handball against Kayla Sharples. Esther Gonzalez kicks it up into her arm, called for a penalty. It wasn't awarded. I have seen plays like that given, especially in the men's game. I feel like you have to have the context. I think the fact that the ball hit the inner part of Kayla Sharple's arm is what saved it from being a penalty. And also keep in mind, they go to VAR and they overrule it if there is a clear and obvious error. People will say, oh, well, it obviously hit her arm, so it obviously should have been a penalty. I've seen that called in the past, like I said. I've always felt like that was a harsh call just because of the proximity of the ball being kicked up into the arm. And even if her arm had been perfectly lined up against her side, the ball still was going to hit her arm either way. So again, I think the fact that the ball hit the inner part of her arm, even though it was a little bit outstretched, I don't think it was egregiously making her body bigger. But yeah, that's kind of my take. I understand why Gotham is upset. If I was in the position, I would probably feel the same way. But I've always felt in that situation, in that context, calls like that were a bit harsh.
All right. You have anything else to wrap up that segment?
I guess just thoughts on the season overall, just real quick. We still have that same prolific offense that we had last season. We're scoring goals at a high rate. I think that our MVP up until this point is, again, Temwa Shawinga. If you had asked me the first 5 games, I probably would have said Dabinia. She has some injury that she's been dealing with the past week or two, so she's kind of missed the past couple of games. But I think the big difference for this season is we're not giving up as nearly as many goals as we have been. And I think a big credit needs to go to addressing the defense. They did that with trades for Alana Cook, who unfortunately suffered an ACL tear a couple weeks ago, as well as Kayla Sharples. I think she's our unsung hero. I think she's done a great job locking down the defense.
All right. Awesome. That brings us to our next segment, and we like to call this segment Q's and A's. Now, you're thinking, Tyler, Q's and A's usually stands for questions and answers. This is your first podcast episode ever. How did you get fans to ask questions? We didn't.
We did not.
We don't have fans. However, this stands for something a little different. Q is what everybody in Kansas City likes to call our coach, Matt Quachero. So Q's, essentially, it does stand for questions, but it's more like questionable decisions that Q makes, which are a lot of those decisions. And then the A's are the answers or the solutions that we would give to fix those issues. And Austin is so generous as to give me this segment so I can really let my passion out about these frustrations I may or may not have with the Royals' current manager, skipper, if you will. That's another word for manager. Just saying.
Oh, no, I've heard it. It's a soccer term as well. Football term. The skipper. But it stands for captain. But we'll get to that later. It's okay.
No, it's only baseball.
Gaffer is the coach.
Okay. So first thing I'd like to talk about is Game 1 of the St. Louis series. We had Noah Cameron going out there and allowing... How many runs was it again?
Let's see, probably 1?
Zero.
Not
even one.
Not even one. Okay.
Noah had gone through 6 full innings with 81 pitches, given up 0 runs, as I just said. And for reference, the last game he had just gone 92 pitches with 1 earned run. And the game before that, 82 pitches, 1 earned run, 81 pitches, 1 earned run, 79 pitches, 0 earned runs. And Noah has had 2 of his 3 runs this season come after or around 80 pitches, but neither time was he showing any severe signs of fatigue. He wasn't slowing down. He just gave up 1 run. He wasn't loading up the bases. He wasn't looking like he was getting anxious out there, which he really doesn't. He's really just a straight up professional guy that has all the confidence in the world. So although in general, I would occasionally be okay with taking him out around 81, 82 pitches, we don't have Urseg. We had a doubleheader, so we had to use a lot of the bullpen that day, and until right before the second game of the doubleheader, we thought Reagans wasn't going to be able to pitch because he wasn't reinstated yet.
Do you feel like they brought Riggins back because they used so much of the bullpen that first game? Do you feel like they rushed him a bit?
I would hope not, because that would be seen as completely unprofessional to bring someone back from injury, and they have already brought him back from injury twice this season, so I doubt it, because I don't think they'd make that stupid of a decision. But maybe if it was like, we'll bring him back either today or tomorrow, maybe because of the bullpen situation, they're like, it's today. I don't know. But anyways, I haven't even really got to what I'm frustrated about. I'm just laying out some of the facts. So we take Noah out after 6 innings of only 81 pitches, allowing no runs. And we put in John Schreiber, who, in my opinion, is not the first best choice or the second best choice or the third best choice or the fourth best choice to go to in the 7th inning of a game where you're only up, I believe we were up 3 runs. So it is a save situation. Not a save situation as in it's the 9th inning, but a save situation for the bullpen going into the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. So we put in John Schreiber. He doesn't have a terrible ERA, 3.33 on the year before this outing, but he does not have one of the top 5 ERAs. Every time, even when he's not allowing runs, he always looks like it always looks like it could go either way. In every close game he's pitched in, he loads up the bases sometimes. He has balls hit super hard that we just happen to catch. It's not an ideal person to put in. I do not know why he took Noah Cameron out, but even more, I don't know why out of everybody he put Schreiber in. So Schreiber comes in, he gives up a double, a single, an RBI ground out, another single, and then a second earned run after Lynch came in for him. After Lynch came in for him and gave up a sac fly, that was a run charged to Schreiber. Lynch eventually gets us out of that inning and probably would have got us out of the inning with no runs if he would have come in, because he's one of the people that would be better to go to in that situation. We had Cruz, probably our best bullpen pitcher right now, just in terms of how good he has been recently. We had Lynch, as I just said. We had Clark, and we had Bolin. All of them would have been much better decisions for this situation. Each of these players have better ERAs, and Clark and Bolin have pitched in less games. I'll give that up. But 11 for Clark, 7 for Bolin, respectfully. It's still enough to know that they're going to continue to pitch good. They've proven themselves. So they're not people that can't be trusted because they've pitched enough to earn that trust. And it's easier to say this looking back because he's had a lot of good outings since then, but I even would have rather had Zerpa in there than Schreiber. I don't think Schreiber should ever be the 7th inning guy, even with Urseg out. It makes no sense to put him in there. At the end of the day, even if Q feels that Noah is going to be worse after a certain pitch count, like 82, because they keep track of that, or after an inning, like the 6th inning, he has pitched so good that you need to reward him for how good he's doing, and you need to instill that confidence that I know, even though you haven't done it yet, because you haven't been given the opportunity, I know you can keep going until at least 90, 95, 100 pitches, because you have shown me that you are not afraid of any opportunity. You shut down every offense you've taken, and I'm going to give you this now, especially with our bullpen that is injured, needed to pitch in a lot of innings in the next game of a doubleheader. And in a situation where it's only a 3-run lead, you got to keep him in there. And if you don't, you got to put one of our trusted guys in, not your boyfriend Schreiber. So yeah, At the end of the day, I just need Q to stop being nerdy, because he is so nerdy and he's always thinking 6 games ahead or 7 innings ahead, or I need to save this guy for this game in three days, which makes sense if you're winning game after game after game. But in a situation where we're in a massive slump and we have to win games, we're desperate to win games, we need to focus on the game at hand, which is something I feel like he never does, and we always pay the price for it.
It's the analytics, man. That was kind of like one of the things that when we hired Q, they were like, yeah, this is an analytics guy. I'm still trying to figure out what the analytics means, but I feel like it hasn't helped the Royals as much as it has hurt.
It's Quanalytics, because he doesn't even really make moves based on like solid, grounded, proven analytics. He comes up with his own based on what he thinks is going to happen, and he's like in the middle of doing things based on vibes and doing things based on analytics. He's not even in the middle, he's outside. Like, he's outside of this glass room looking in. Anyways,
well, to shift gears, I know your blood pressure's already high. I'll try not to make it any higher, but
well, as long as we don't talk about Q again.
Well, we have one more thing to talk about. So, to give some context, in the White Sox series, the Royals had Maikel Garcia. I believe there was 2 on, no outs, and Q decided to bunt Maikel Garcia. Do you recollect? I'm trying to think. Garcia got out, and they weren't able to score any runs that inning, if I remember correctly, and we went on to lose the game.
That's almost right. So yeah, Q had his best hitter. Maybe by far is a bit of a stretch, but average-wise, by far, over 20 average points than the next best player on the team, which is Bobby. And I would, if somebody said Bobby Witt Jr. is our best batter, I wouldn't contest that. I think that's probably correct. But right now, Garcia is the best hitter this year, 312 average. He comes up with 2 on, no out, and he had just homered early in that game, I believe, or recently. And it's a perfect moment where he's going to put the ball in play, and he's likely going to get a hit and score a run. But instead, Q wants to take the for sure run, for sure, question mark, which is having him do a sacrifice bunt to get the runners over, even if it means sacrificing an out. So Maikel bunts, and unfortunately it's not a very good bunt. It goes right back to the pitcher. The pitcher throws it to third to get the force out. So it wasn't even a sacrifice bunt. It was just an out. Finally, the Royals media gets on him about this. That's kind of part of the reason I wanted to do this podcast, because it feels like a lot of times they don't get on to him about decisions like this that he makes often. But in that situation, you have to let your best batter swing. You have to. It makes no sense to bunt. And they were even expecting a bunt. They were lined up for it. I don't know why, but even better reason to have him swing. The field is so much more open.
They were expecting the Quanalytics to shine through.
Yeah, I guess they just knew. They just know Q, I guess. But we go on to get no runs out of that inning. I understand Vinny was up after him, so like I get that if you do bunt them over, you have one of your hottest hitters right now that could bat them both in. But if you don't bunt them over, and even if you get out, you have one of your hottest hitters coming up that can at least get 1 run in because there's a guy on second. It doesn't make any sense. And then we go to the bottom of the 8th, and we have Bolin come up. Bolin was in his 2nd inning in a row. He had already pitched like 20 pitches. He put him back in, which is fine. He was pitching well. But then after Bolin puts like 2 or 3 guys on Q's like, I'm going to stay with Bolin, even though he's approaching like 40 pitches now. And, I mean, we had a bunch of errors. We had a wild pitch. It was a nightmare of an inning. Yeah. But essentially, we ended up losing 7-2 somehow, or 7-3. I'm getting my scores mixed up. We ended up losing by a lot because, in my opinion, Q did not make a decision fast enough to get a different pitcher in the game, which makes total sense to do because he had thrown so many pitches and was clearly fatigued. Which brings us, sorry, hold on, just 1 second, to the last game that happened on Sunday when we were up 7-2 against the White Sox in the 9th inning. We have Richards come in, who we just picked up recently, I believe, or we just called up from the minors. I don't think he's a rookie. I think he's been in the league for a while, and I think he's struggled for a while, I believe. Regardless, he had pitched the night before, and I think given up 1 run, but more or less looked solid. He comes in the 9th inning, which is fine because we have a 5-point lead, and usually when you have above a 3-point lead, you don't put your closer in because typically you don't need him. I don't recall how they got on base. I think maybe a single and a walk, but he puts 2 on with no outs. At that point, it's 7-2. If both of the base runners scored, it would be a 3-point game, a 3-run game, and that is when you have to bring your closer in because now it's a save situation. I think technically it's not a save situation until the player that makes it a 3-run game gets the second, but essentially it's a save situation. Bring in Estevez now because Richards is looking shaky. You can't trust him. He's only pitched 1 game for the Royals all season, and he gave up a run in the 1 game that he did pitch. You have to bring in Estevez now. No, he, I think, walks another guy, and it's like, okay, you should have brought Estevez in the last at bat. But here he comes. No, he keeps him in for another batter. And he walks that batter and walks in the first run. And here comes Q. Way too late. Estevez lets all 3 of those base runners score, which none of them are charged to him. And then one of the White Sox comes up, hits a bullet to the left side, which easily would have got them to at least a 1-run game. But Bobby Witt Jr., my hero, does his best superhero impression, flies through the air, dives and catches it. If he doesn't catch that ball, I don't think Q should get a plane ticket for a ride home with the rest of the team. It was crazy. It's crazy. Sometimes he makes preemptive decisions that are way too fast, and then sometimes he just can't make a decision, and it costs us so often. Luckily, we were able to get out of that game, and we got our Kamehameha, or whatever it is. But, oh, God, it's so frustrating, and if this stuff continues to happen consistently, I really think we need to take another look at keeping Q on as a manager. Like, a lot of people thought Zumwalt, our hitting coach, should be fired a while ago. I was like 50-50 on that, but now all of our bats have steadily improved. I don't really think he's too bad, but the decisions is what kills us. The decisions are terrible, and I've been saying it since last year, and I know it's kind of like an unpopular opinion to want a manager to possibly be fired who was our manager when we were last place, losing 100 games, and then our manager when we went to the playoffs the next year. But I just don't think he necessarily knows exactly what he's doing out there.
Okay. That was a lot you unloaded there.
Yeah, so next we have a segment called Q's and Praise, but it's going to be cut for time because there was so many Q's and A's, unfortunately.
There were.
We are pressed for time, but so we're going to get through these last couple segments pretty quickly. But this next one is called Weird Rules. In baseball, there's a ton of weird rules, obscure rules, things that you just wouldn't expect to be in there. So I am going to tell Austin 4 different rules, and for each one, he is going to guess, you are going to guess if the rule is real or something I made up. And it's not something like 3 truths and a lie or anything. Each one of them could be real, could not be real. So we'll do them individually.
Sure.
First one we got here is the drop third strike rule. I'm just generally giving them a title. I'm not using their actual title. That would be confusing and sometimes give it away anyways. But this rule is if a third strike is called on a batter, but the catcher does not catch the ball, the catcher must tag the runner or throw to first base to get them out. It is possible for a batter to have a third strike called, but still reach base safely, though rare.
Yeah, I've seen this a million times. It's real.
Incorrect. No, yeah, that's real. That's real. We're starting easy because we're seeing what he
Listen,
what he knows.
Like I said, I'm self-taught. I know a lot. Don't know everything.
Taught is not always a good thing, but I also just anybody in the audience who doesn't know baseball like super well, super deep. I wanna use this part of the podcast as like an educational section as well, in case you were looking for that.
Absolutely.
Next one is catcher's interference. If a catcher extends his glove forward so far that the batter hits their glove with their bat while they're trying to swing, the batter is awarded first base.
Yeah, I believe I saw this one. Wilson Contreras had his forearm fractured last season. I believe this is real.
You are correct. 2 for 2. Nice.
Thank you.
Next rule. If an infielder or outfielder calls for a pop-up or fly ball, and then a different player catches it, the ball is dead and the runners are all safe and awarded an extra base.
I don't think that's real. I know there's the infield fly rule, but that's called by the umps. I'm going to say false or fake.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, it is.
That's correct. Yeah, I came up with that one.
I could tell.
I didn't necessarily do the best job, but here we go. Ejected personnel in the stands. When a manager, coach, or player is ejected, they're permitted to sit in the stands provided they change into street clothes and are well removed from the vicinity of their team's bench or bullpen.
I feel like that's false because either the managers are so mad they always leave and go into the clubhouse, or they're just not permitted to come back out. But I don't know that I've seen anyone ever come back out. So I'm going to say this is fake.
I have not seen anybody come back out either, but it is real.
Interesting.
I did not know that until I found it out doing some research.
Okay.
That's pretty crazy. And they would never do that because they would get hounded by the fans the whole time and it would make no sense.
Unless you're at home and everyone agrees with you and cheers for you that, yeah, you stuck up for our team.
Well, when I say hounded, I don't necessarily mean they're like going to be insulted. They're just going to be, people are going to want to talk to them and take pictures with them or whatever. But this was probably made in like 1918 and never really revisited. But yeah, so you went 3 for 4. Pretty good. As I said, we're pressed for time, so we were going to do an around the league thing, but we were just going to talk about that guy who got hit in the head by the catcher because he wasn't looking. Ouch. Am I right?